here with the Oracle Outlook for the week starting March the 12th, 2018. Before getting into this week's reading, I just want to take a moment to thank those of you who watched last week's video reading and took the time to wish me a happy birthday. In case you didn't know, in case you didn't watch last week's video reading, I announced, or I shared, that I was going to be celebrating my birthday in the middle of the week. So March the 7th last week was my birthday. And I was saying that because I was very excited to see what was going to be in the cards for me in the reading, because as often as I do these readings, I'm fully aware that as I'm sharing messages for each of you, that there are also messages that are going to be pertinent to me as the reader. Well, lo and behold, this is what happened. So in last week's reading, the Empress card had popped up because I worked with the Arcana Tarot playing cards, and I had said that the card for me can represent this idea of making sure that you take care of yourself. And I had mentioned self-care last week for people who may be spending a lot of time and energy taking care of people around them at the expense of themselves. So that message was for me because what had happened was in the beginning of the week, I had a cold. So during my birthday, I was actually sick. So it's okay. I think I had a common cold. You know, we all go through them. So I had a common cold. Wasn't the flu. I think I'm on the other side of it, which is why I'm now shooting this video. But I spent most of the week taking care of myself. So that was the message that I needed to have. And as a result of that, the High Priestess was the focus card. And one of the things that I said about her was that she can represent this idea of adopting a wait-and-see approach. So I had to clear my schedule. I was on hold. I had to wait and see how things were going to develop with this cold, and before I could actually either engage in activity or re-engage in activity. So that was the course of my week. But I still had a wonderful birthday, you know, because I was here to see it. So I had a wonderful birthday. But again, I just really wanted to share all that to thank those of you who sent me birthday wishes. It meant the world to me. So thank you for that. So the deck that I want to work with this week, I wanted to work with a Lenormand deck. So the deck that's going to be assisting me for this week's reading is the Maybe Lenormand. It is by Ryan Edward, and it is published by US Games Systems Incorporated. And so I was contemplating on working with the entire deck, but as I was getting ready to sit down and shoot the video, I decided at the last moment that I would work with just the Lenormand aspect of the deck. So if you're not familiar with the deck, so the deck is called the Maybe Lenormand, but what it is actually a 52 card deck. And so it has within it the 36 traditional Lenormand cards, and then the other remaining 16 cards follow different divination systems like Gypsy Witch cards or the old Whitman fortune-telling cards. So I am not going to be using the additional 16 cards. I'm just opting to working with the traditional 36 Lenormand cards. So that is the deck that I have on hand on the table, or at least the part of the deck that I have on hand. So now I'm going to go ahead and shuffle the cards. And as I shuffle, my intention for these weekly readings is always, what do we need to know for the week ahead? So that is what I'm focusing on as I shuffle the cards. All right, I'm feeling that's good. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut the deck and fan the cards out. And now I'm looking for 5 cards that are getting my attention, because when I work with Lenormand decks, I tend to do a line of 5, 4, and 5. All right. So now that I have the 5 cards selected, I'm taking the remainder of the deck and we're going to put that aside. And now we're going to go through the line. And I always start with the middle card. So the middle card always for me represents the central issue for the week, or something that we're being asked to focus on for the week going forward. So looking at the card we have, oh, this is interesting. Okay. So here we have the Mountain card. So a mountain for me is a card that can represent challenge, obstacles, and blocks. Those are my keyword associations with this card. I also tend to think of things like delays, obstacles, or postponements. So keeping this relative with what I just shared, there's no mistakes with the things that I share. Keeping this relative to me, this card would represent me overcoming the setback that I've had of having a cold, right? And having to delay my schedule or postpone things, you know, things of that nature. So that's what this card can represent for me. So keeping it relative to you, what challenges, what blocks, what obstacles are you facing? What have you had to either postpone? What kind of delays are you experiencing? What kind of setbacks are you experiencing? Because that is what we're being asked to focus on this week. It could be a matter of what are we willing to do to allow us to overcome those challenges, those obstacles, those blocks. So that's how I would look at the mountain card. But now you know, Lenormand being what it is, that we'll get more information from the surrounding cards. So well, let's take a look at those now, because that will give us more of a deeper meaning to the central issue and focus. So starting with the card on the far left, opening the line up, let's take a look. We have, okay. So here we have the ring card. So ring, for me, can represent a couple of things. So I'm just going to list out my association. So one possibility with the ring card, this can represent something having to do with some kind of commitment, right? So commitment can mean different things to different people. This card can suggest a relationship, a serious, committed relationship. So keeping it relative to the focus or the central issue, there may be some sort of challenge or block or some sort of obstacle with someone's commitment, and I'm talking about a relationship. Now, it could be also to some other form of commitment or engagement, and this would make sense keeping it relative to me, where I talked about this idea about rescheduling things or postponing things because of a setback. So it could be saying too that there may be some sort of commitment or engagement or some sort of promise that may be affected by some sort of challenge, obstacle, some sort of delay, or some sort of setback. It could even literally mean that there's going to be an engagement that has to be postponed. And that could be a literal engagement between two parties who are contemplating getting married, or it could be some sort of activity, you know, like some sort of event that's going to be postponed, or there's going to be some sort of setback or challenge. So that's how I would look at rings. So it could just be a matter of, when I see this card, the prompt or the question that I always offer is, be mindful of the commitments that you are going to be making this week, because you may need to consider how you're going to do your level best to keep your promises and honor all your commitments. So that's how I would look at ring. So now let's take a look at the card in between, because that'll give us more information. So now here we have, as long as I've been doing this, you see me on camera going all this other, it's because I'm about to say you can't make this stuff up. So the card that is in between ring and mountain, no lie, is garden. Garden is a card that has to do with the public. It has to do with social events, social activity, things having to do with other people. So if we pair ring and garden, we have a social engagement, a public engagement, you know, a public or social commitment. It could be a commitment to other people, you know, things of that nature. So it's just reinforcing this idea that the commitment that ring is talking about, there are other people who are going to be involved in that or are going to be a part of that process. So again, commitment can come in all different forms, but it's a matter of being mindful of the commitments that you're making and the promises that you're making, because especially if they are to other people, right? So there is that. But there's something about a social engagement or some sort of public engagement that may be affected with mountain, right? We don't know what form the obstacle or the block or the challenge is, but we do know that there is one coming because of the order of the cards in the line. So there's just that to consider. So now let's take a look at what's on the other side of the mountain card. So here we have, okay, so here we have bouquet. So bouquet for me is a card that can represent an invitation. Now that would make sense if we have the idea here that ring and garden are talking about a social event, a public event, some sort of public engagement, things of that nature. And this would make sense because this could be like receiving an invitation to a social event, right? So there is that. And it could be a matter of when you are receiving the invitation, it's a matter of maybe it's one of those things where you have to RSVP. Well, then you're keeping a promise that you're going to show up, right? And RSVP says, I'm going to be there, right? So it could be saying too, like, be mindful that you may get an invitation to an event and you may have to RSVP, right? And then you have to make the decision, like, am I going to say that I'm going, and then am I going to honor that commitment and actually show up, right? So then but here's the thing, so since bouquet comes after mountain, and we talked about the idea about mountain being a challenge, a block, or an obstacle, could be saying too, there's going to be some sort of challenge that comes up as a surprise challenge is how I would read these. Could also be too, like, there's going to be some sort of delay or setback, so it could be a surprise delay, a surprise setback, a surprise postponement, you know, those are that things of that nature, if I can get the words out. But that's how I would look at this. So it would be saying too, like, whatever this challenge is, whatever this obstacle is, it may come as a surprise, right? It could also be too that if we go with this idea here that this card can represent something being delayed, it could also be too, like, there may be some delay or setback with an invitation, right? It could be saying too, like, there's this event going on, keeping with the order of the cards, there's this event going on, you haven't gotten an invite because there was some sort of delay that kept the invite from getting to you, right? So there is that. The only other thing that I want to say about bouquet is that bouquet has the Queen of Spades as its playing card insert. And so, you know, I've been really focusing on playing cards these days a lot. So for me, this is a card that can represent a person. So with that, bouquet can represent a woman. So it could be saying too, there's going to be some event, some sort of social commitment, public commitment that has a setback or a delay that's going to really impact or affect a woman in particular. Right, so that's another way of looking at that. So now let's take a look at the final card and round this week's reading up. So, you can't make this stuff up. So here at the end of the line, we have the Rider card. So Rider, for me, represents news or messages being delivered. So I want to reiterate what I had talked about with this bouquet card coming before it. Something having to do with an invitation being delivered, right? So there is something having to do with that. So it could be saying too, for someone in particular, you may hear about an event and you may have been thinking like, well, where's my invitation? And there may be some sort of delay with you receiving your invitation. I'm going to think you're going to get it, but there may have been some sort of delay or setback with that. Or the other possibility here is that if you are going to be going to a social function, something of that nature, you may receive news, since Rider is the last card in the line, you may receive news that there has been some sort of surprise delay, surprise setback, surprise postponement around this commitment or engagement. So the cards are quite clear this week, so I'm just going to offer as I close, be very mindful of any commitments that you're making to other people this week, because there may be some sort of challenge with keeping the commitment. And so you want to, I guess the best way for me to put it is you want to prepare for any and all possibilities that could suddenly come up in regards to you honoring your commitments this week. So on that note, I will go ahead and end this week's Oracle Outlook. I'm James Himm Mitchell, and as I close, I'd like to first thank those of you who have recently subscribed to the channel. Over the course of the last week, I had a number of new subscribers, so I want to take this moment to officially welcome you to the channel and saying thank you for taking that additional step to subscribe to the channel. It means the world to me that you would open yourself up for having me come into your world every time I post a new video. But as I always say, whether you are a subscriber or a regular viewer, I want to thank you for your support and encouragement of the work that goes into the channel. I couldn't do what I do here without any of you there. So on that note, I will go ahead and close. So thank you for watching this week's video. And as I close, I hope that you have a wonderful day. And I'm hoping that you have a wonderful week. Take care.